Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So it looks like the brand new Toyota Tacoma has actually been accidentally leaked in these patent pictures from Motor One. So let's go through this article and see what's what with this new Tacoma and if it's actually the real Tacoma and why I think I can almost guarantee that it is, looking at the images but also some of the facts here in the article. Then I'm gonna pop it into Photoshop, play a little bit with the contrast so we can get a better view of this and compare it to the current Tacoma and also to the Tundra, because this is very much influenced by the Tundra's design, which I think is a good thing. So this, as they say right here, a new generation of the Toyota Tacoma is on the way, and a design patent registration from Brazil gives an undisguised look at the new truck, which we can see right here, obviously. And they say they can't know for sure that it's the new Tacoma, but I can tell you that 98% chance that this is the new Tacoma. In front, the Tacoma has similarities to the new Tundra, which is expected, and also that EV concept that they dropped a couple of months back looks very much like that as well, because they said that this will also have an electric, fully electric version of the new Tacoma. So I think that was a preview of that. Some of the similarities between the Tundra and the Tacoma here is that we have this front end that looks very similar with these intakes right here. And you also have these fog lights down here, the bumper, similar to the Tundra. And you also have some more styling features right here. For example, this cut in the lower end, which I kind of like. I'm gonna let you know why when we jump into Photoshop and have a look at that. The back also has very similar taillights to the Tundra, almost like a clamp that sits in the rear end, which I'm not the biggest fan of how it looks like in the Tundra, but I think it looks a lot better here in the Tacoma actually, and I'm gonna show you that as well when we compare the old Tacoma, new Tacoma to the Tundra in just a minute. So what about the powertrain options here? So it says it will be available with two engine options. A 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder would come from the current Highlander, where the power plant makes 265 horsepower, which seems reasonable for a new Tacoma, and 309 pound-feet of torque. The other choice would be a hybrid assisted turbocharged 2.4 liter 4-cylinder, and this power plant makes 366 horsepower in the Lexus RX right now, 406 pound-feet of torque, and the same power plant also makes 340 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque in the new Toyota Crown. So that would be some significant increases in power if it actually gets 350 horsepower in a new Tacoma. I wouldn't say no to that. It would be pretty cool to have. Now, the reason why I think this is in fact the new Tacoma is right here. So we can see that the authors of the patent and the names of these people right here. And when you look at what these people do, they are deep inside the design department and organization of Toyota, going back all the way to 2009 for one person, and that's why I think this is 100% the new Tacoma and what it will look like. So let's jump into Photoshop here, because I made this little collage here for you so you can see the differences and the similarities, I would say, more likely, between the patent leak of the Tacoma and the current Tacoma and the current Tundra. So here we have the front view, for example. I really like this design. I think it looks super tight and chiseled. It also feels, this is also a good example of when you can have a little bit more fun with the styling. It looks like a baby Tundra basically, and I really like that because that's what I want to see. The big brother being a little bit more serious and the younger brother having a little bit more fun with the design. You can see that we still have these fog lights in the bumper down here, but overall it's a super clean design. I like the bumper a lot better than I do on the Tundra. I'm not a huge fan of this how this protrudes out like this and looks pretty heavy in the lower part. This is probably something I would change out and replace if I got the Tundra, to make it look a little bit less front heavy in the lower part of the design. And looking at the current Tacoma, this looks really good as well, and it's been updated so many times, the Tacoma, that it's definitely time for a new one. So looking at it from a 3/4 front view, you know, this is one of their best selling vehicles of all time. So I understand that they really want to take it easy on the design changes and not mess up the success that is the Tacoma, and I think they did a really good job with that. For example, modernization such as this line down here in the body, it's still intact here, but it feels that this line has more confidence now than it did in the current Tacoma. And also the front end, you have the same angles in the grille, for example, just some minor changes to the bumper, and I think this replacing this black trim piece here with the fog lights in the side to this instead, having it go up almost like a inverted diffuser in the front end, I think this looks a lot better than it does on the current Tacoma, even though the current Tacoma I think is a really actually beautiful looking truck. And looking at the front intake right here underneath the headlights, very similar to what we have in the new Tundra as well, and these fenders cuts that we have in the front and rear fenders are also implemented here in the new Tacoma, as you can see in these patent pictures right here. Now looking at the rear view, I think this looks, as I said, like a baby Tacoma, but it feels a lot more nimble and more fun. And looking at the rear end, as I said, I wasn't a huge fan of these clamp style taillights in the Tundra because they feel maybe a little too static for me. They basically mirrored up here and down here. There's no movement up and down, and I think the bumper helps with that to emphasize that static feel. But in the Tacoma here, we have this big cut going in right here, which I think looks really cool, and it actually creates more dynamic movement in the lower part of the rear end of the patent pictures on the Tacoma. And we also have a pretty standardized bumper, which I think is good. Not have it be too complicated because truck bumpers usually take a lot of hits and so on, so they want to have this be a place that's easily replaceable. But overall, looking at this view, it looks very sharp and chiseled, and I really like this evolution from the current generation Tacoma, which feels a little softer in the corners, for example, in these corners and in the rear end and the taillight as well. And it feels like they just took this design, morphed it with the Tundra, and boom, out came this little beauty right here. Looking at the side view, we can now see that the curvature, or it feels like the greenhouse, the A-pillar, has a bit more of an angle to it when we compare it to the current Tacoma. This feels like it's a little bit more rounded and dips a little faster in the front end right here. This feels like it's one angle here and then one angle straight back, and of course the greenhouse being cut off by the bed. And here you can clearly see these big cuts in the fender lines that I think looks really cool and adds a lot of identity to the truck models of Toyota, which is not an easy thing to do, specifically not in a side view, because it's such a functional design that you need to play around with the graphics in the surfacing of the body to create some identity for side views on trucks. And here we can see this rear end angle that I like, that kind of cuts off the rear bumper and creates a very sporty looking rear end compared to the current generation, with just basically a box in the rear end with not a lot going on in the graphic features of the tail end. Same thing with the Tundra, it also feels a lot boxier, which is fine because, as I said, it's the big brother and it's supposed to be a little bit more grown up, and this feels a lot sportier in my opinion than the Tundra. And last but not least, I just wanted to throw in this top view for those interested in looking at what that looks like. We have some nice cuts in the hood here as well, similar to the cuts that we have in the side, so we have some continuity even from a top view going into side view. Very excited about this truck. I think it's a perfect modernization of the current Tacoma, and I really hope they put a powertrain in here that has around 350 horsepower. That would be fantastic. I'm not sure when this will be unveiled officially, but since we have the patent images now, it can't really be that far ahead in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.